Oh yeah, I'm living my best life.
I am actually pretty intentionally bad at responding these days. I don't know if you've done this, but like I just do not want to be on my phone anymore. Oh yeah, you did a thing with your phone. You made it a dumb phone. Are you still doing that?
I just bought a dumb phone. Yeah.
Bought a dumb phone. But didn't you have something where you couldn't be on it unless it was on the charger? What was that?
I still have that. So to unlock it to use certain apps, it uses the same technology as wireless charging, except it unlocks the phone.
And that's when you could like scroll Facebook or whatever app was limited to that.
Yeah.
Tell the people about that. What is that called?
So it is from a company called Dumb Wireless.
Not a sponsor yet.
Not a sponsor yet. And they work with a company called Unplug. And it's got one of those really fun tech spellings where they just take out a consonant and put another one in, but they pronounce it the same way. So it's UNPLUQ.
And I'm supposed to pronounce a Q as a G?
Yeah. Yeah. But it works really well. Keeps things focused.
Why'd you do that?
I just really to bring focus to my day, I limited my social media to really only being like LinkedIn. I'll check email, I'll check text messages. I'll run maps. And then there's maybe a handful of some other ones like, we've got like a family photo album that we all upload pictures to and whatnot, but just kind of simplifying all of the channels, like the inputs that come in.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff you get hit with.
Yeah.
Let alone my own brain, right? I got enough thoughts. Had enough from outside. But, well, Derek Volkmann, welcome to the podcast. I'm just going to say that now so that nobody accuses me of not introducing my guests, which is apparently something that happens. As to insult their intelligence from being able to read the title. But, maybe I have listening only people, not people who can hear or see. Like maybe I have blind listeners. So anyway.
You're trying to make the podcast more accessibility minded.
Yes. Yep. So anyway, I'm excited to talk to you. I don't know what's going on with me right now. I think it's like a nervous comedic energy with you where like I kind of want to just start going anywhere, but I don't want to be disrespectful to you by not just being like, tell me I want all of anytime I record with somebody that I know, I'm usually a bit more engaged because like, I don't know, I'm just having a lot more fun. And sometimes we don't talk about anything. Like, did you listen to the Logan and I's episode?
I haven't listened to it yet.
We don't talk about anything, but it's like pretty good podcast content for like 2 hours. So, but no, this is my friend Derek Volkmann. Derek is 33? 33, white. What's your ethnicity? Don't you have some German? Volkmann?
Yeah, there's 2 N's on the end of my last name.
Yeah, tell the people about that.
It's German. It means man of the people. I thought that was really cool in high school.
Man of the people.
Yeah.
Was that like have you like lived by that mantra in your life? A man of the people? Very Trump-esque,
Maybe not intentionally. No,
how far away from is your lineage? Like, when did your lineage get over here?
I don't know when the Volkmanns came over. I think it was probably around the turn of the 20th century. There's not a whole lot I know about the Volkmanns beyond my great-great-grandfather. I think that's who it was. His parents, or it might have been my great-grandfather. I don't quite remember, but his parents died in the Spanish influenza. So that would have been, the first decade or the second decade of the 20th century. That was in Chicago. I don't really know much more beyond that. But through like my dad's mother, we've done a lot of genealogical history with them, and we can point all the way back to Glarus, Switzerland.
Wow.
With them. So, but everybody came over probably the end of the 19th century. So,
dude, do you know why like the numbers on centuries don't line up with like the numbers of the year? Like, isn't the 18th century the 1700s? Is it because it's like post dating the previous 100 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you looked at like centuries, like a block,
yeah,
you would have 18 of those blocks.
Right.
But you can't start.
Okay. That's, I feel like when you're born, you should be 1. That's your first year. You behind that, right?
I could.
You've been alive for 9 months, mostly.
Nobody's doing that.
No, but I mean, like, that's where my brain goes when I think about the 19th century. I'm thinking 1900s.
Right.
That would make a lot more sense.
You and I are both born in the 1900s.
That's true. By the way. That's one of my favorite things to say. I was born in the late 1900s. We're gonna get to say that the rest of our lives.
You're like 97 though, right?
95.
95. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
so you are 30. A 90s kid.
I was born the same year as the Lion King.
So we should call you Simba.
I mean, I liked Simba a lot and had a crush on Nala for sure.
Pretty sure that's against the Bible.
You okay over there?
I just can't believe you said that.
I was like 5, probably.
See the animal.
I'm pretty sure there's something in like Leviticus that says don't do that.
At least Leviticus, yeah. No, I mean, I thought the love story was cute. I was like, where's my Nala? Maybe I'll find my Nala someday. And like you'd sing the what's his name song. Can you feel? Who wrote that? John Legend? John? No,
Elton
what's his
John.
name? Huh? Elton John.
Elton John.
The love tonight. So anyway, yeah, I'm a 95 kid. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the centuries. But didn't you tell me you met some random person at a wedding recently that is very similar last name to you?
No.
Man.
I feel like I haven't talked to you in a long time.
I know, but like I feel like when I say recently, I mean the last 5 years. So it could be anything, but I swear you were telling me about some guy with a very similar last name to you, but it was like Volkmann or something like that. I don't know. Like in Oklahoma. I don't know, dude. I'm feeling really crazy right now. Okay, so dude, I don't know where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about? Why'd you even come on this podcast?
We've been trying to get this figured out for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm so busy.
Yeah.
We can talk about the busyness and the business and all of that, but
well, here's an easy place to start. You grew up in, would you call it Boonesboro?
Yes, exactly that way.
Boonesboro?
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in Boonesboro, which is it's a community in West Howard County that I went to the New Franklin School District, but if I went like a mile north, I would be in the Fayette School District, and if I went west from there a little bit, it'd be the Glasgow School District.
It's like how many people in that area?
Well, I think the sign says like population 21 for like the little township that Boonesboro is. I couldn't tell you how many people live in that area, but
but is that where were you born in this area and raised in Boonesboro?
So when I was born, my folks were living south of Boonville. They were south of the Bobber Cafe, if anybody remembers what that was. So kind of an old diner that was on Highway B as you go across the interstate. Grew up, both myself and my brother, we were born while mom and dad were living there. And then we moved around Boonville a couple of times, and then 2 more siblings came along. And then when I was 10, we moved north of the river to the farm that mom and dad were renting that they actually own now.
Okay. So same spot since you were 10.
Yeah.
Cool. Went to New Franklin the whole time. Oldest, right? Oldest sibling? There's not another older one I don't know about. Okay. Yeah, well, tell people about like growing up in a small town, like because obviously, I mean, we'll talk about it. You know, you've lived in some bigger areas, but small town roots. Did you like it? What did you talk me through? Kind of your upbringing in New Franklin, all that fun stuff.
So New Franklin is interesting. It's a smaller school. I think, but when I was there, it was 1A, and then it moved it to being like a 2A school. We had access to some really good learning opportunities because we received various types of tech grants, and got to do all of that. But the big thing with New Franklin is one of the big things is Sarah Evans, the country music singer. And so having that, a cool celebrity to point to, I mean, it's even her name is on the sign as you come into the four-way stop by Casey's.
By the Casey's.
So my brother burned up a car in that four-way stop.
What?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I sold my old Buick Regal to him, and then wiring went bad, and it burned right up there in the middle of that four-way stop. It didn't damage the sign, though.
Okay.
So
that's good. Yeah, that sign has stood.
Yeah. So there's an aspect of that in every small town. I would say that I spent more time in Fayette than I did in New Franklin. I mean, I went to school in New Franklin. I had friends there, but a lot of my upbringing from like age 10 on up, I was just in Fayette because of Faith Family. Like that's where my core group of friends were. I did a lot of serving in ministry, whether that was like music ministry or being involved in the youth group and things like that. So,
yeah. I remember, I think I met you first when I think you were probably 14 or 15. And I remember like you hadn't been playing music your whole life, or am I misremembering that? When did you pick up music?
I started piano lessons when I was 9, but both sides of the family, I have aunts and uncles and cousins who all sing or play an instrument and that sort of thing. So, started piano. I wanted to start guitar. We started piano, and then I played guitar when I was 11, and that's been the main thing.
Are you glad you started with piano? Like, everybody says that's the gateway. Would you still agree with that?
I wouldn't agree that it's necessary, but I would say that it is good.
Yeah. This podcast is brought to you by nobody. That's right. Nobody paid for this spot, but this could be your business ad, personally attested to by me with a personalized recommendation. Obviously, I have to like, your product, but I will personally attest to this ad slot. And if you're trying to reach the ears of Fayette, this is the place to do it. So if you want to advertise here, please email us at landonballstudios@gmail.com. That's LandonBallstudios@gmail.com. You think you'll start your kids on piano or guitar? Or?
Yeah. So that was one of the fun things that my wife Kaitlynn and I were really intentional about, was we wanted to get a piano for our family. And so when we got married, we were both in our 30s when we got married. So we had on our gift list or whatever, we kind of had a lot of the household things that you would normally request on like a wedding registry. So instead of calling our cash fund a cash fund, we call it the piano fund. And this is actually a really cool story. We really wanted to find a baby grand piano. And so we got married in January of 2022, like late January. And we didn't take a traditional honeymoon. We went piano shopping. So we drove back and forth between Kansas City and St. Louis at different showrooms trying to find a piano. And we were both, we aspired to buy some really high dollar brands and try to find a good deal. We just couldn't find anything. And so we just kind of gave up on that and said, all right, we're going to earmark it away. And if something comes up, we'll snatch it up. Well, someone at church who was in a Bible study with Kaitlynn said, hey, are you still looking for a piano? And she said, yeah. And she said, well, my neighbor has a baby grand that she just never played. Are you interested? she's moving out. She's going to move in with her kids in St. Louis or something. And I think this was in Moberly. And we said, well, yeah, what's the brand? She said, it's a Yamaha. I said, yeah, we'll come take a look at it.
Yeah.
And so we went to Moberly and looked at this baby grand piano that it was about 12 years old at the time and had only been played once a year.
Oh, wow.
But kept in like humidity controlled, temperature controlled, was never in direct sunlight, like all of that. So basically like a brand new preserved piano that we got at the price that we were budgeting for. And so it sits in our living room right now in this like big bay window. We live in a older but like restored home. And so the old bay window is still there. And so we've tucked it back in there. And with our oldest, I'll go and we'll just do some simple solfege, just do, re, mi. And right now we're learning do, 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 re, 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 mi, mi, mi. And we make it about 3 minutes. And then we're wanting to do other things. But yeah, so.
That's good. My perception of you growing up, and so if I've mistold this story, you can clean me up, but I have always told people like that you were the spitting image of like you can learn music. Like I felt like growing up when I got to know you, like I don't think you really sang at all. And then I felt like you practiced singing until you could sing. And I didn't feel like you were like a natural instrument player either, but you practice, like you were the epitome of like a practice over and over and you'll learn it. Is that true? That's usually what I tell people. It's like anybody can learn an instrument. You know? Do you believe that?
I think there's a certain point where you can learn to express yourself on an instrument. As you move along in life, there might be some physical limitations, but I think there's always a way that you can intellectually connect with learning a new ability or learning a new skill. Translating that into what you can physically do sometimes varies for sure. But yeah, I think I would mostly agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you pick up a guitar?
When or what?
When and what?
So I was 11. Started off with the Hal Leonard guitar method, which is kind of there's a full circle story
we'll get to that
there.
Full circle.
But I started off with that. It really wasn't doing it for me, and then we moved to another teacher who was a worship leader at Faith Family at the time. Damien.
Oh yeah,
yeah, cool. So, Damien Schaefer. So shout out. Thanks for showing me chords.
Full named. Yep.
Yeah. So eventually started taking lessons with him, but then we went through. I learned all the chords and learned all the songs, and Damien said, "Well, I don't probably need to find him another teacher." And so I was self-taught in high school.
Okay.
And so I think, and that kind of self-learning, exploratory learning, is really carried over into how I've done my career, my professional career.
Did that start with music, or do you think it started more with like your farming and small town upbringing, or what would you kind of credit that skill to?
I think that the self-learning is probably mostly with music. With farming in the small town sort of atmosphere, personal responsibility, and reliability and that sort of thing. I think I learned those lessons mainly through those things, just spending time with Dad and some other folks as we were taking care of animals or putting up hay or doing, various projects like, building whatever.
What kind of farm did you guys, was it like cattle or I know you guys have always had birds of some sort, but.
Yeah. So it was, it wasn't a row crop farm, even though we had patches of pasture that, like when I was in high school, we grew pumpkins and gourds and watermelons. We did 2.5 acres of sweet corn that we picked by hand one summer. So we had a little bit of that, but we've always raised large and small livestock. So ran cattle. We had a lot of horses and stuff. My brother is more of the horse guy. But then we also raised a lot of poultry. We do like the all natural free range, like pull pen type of thing for chickens and turkeys and all of that. And so just having to go out and show up because, you know, there's an animal or there's like this life that's depending on you, you know? So learning that and learning the skills that go along with that too, being able to turn a wrench and you know, kind of put stuff together, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That responsibility of just a living being, be it a pet or farming, I think is just such a big skill. You know, you live in a small town now. Is that kind of the upbringing you want to provide for your kids, or what is kind of your thought there?
So my wife and I really value the experiences that we had growing up. And I don't know if we'll be able to give our kids the exact same thing because we don't have the capacity right now to handle those kinds of responsibilities with all of the things going on. But we love the pace of small town life and we love the connection.
Yeah. What kind of things are you talking about there, like that you wish you could give them, but you don't have the capacity to do right now? Like, is it homeschooling, or is that going to be part of the plan?
That's going to be part of the plan.
Okay.
But being able to go out, you know, I'm sure that I'll probably take the kids to go work cattle, but it would be at, you know, one set of grandparents' places.
Somebody else's acreage because we can't afford ground anymore.
Yeah, I know, gosh. Yeah. So we want to give them that, and they'll have access to that. But yeah, I think more so the aspect of connection and like interdependence that you get, where your neighbors, they come in for you, you know. There's so many stories of getting done putting up hay at like 11 o'clock at night with a friend from down the road, and you know they don't want to get paid because you're going to help them the next night. You're going to stay up till 11 o'clock the next night hauling their hay.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of reciprocity sort of thing. So I've lived in areas like really big metro areas. There's a different sense of that, of community. It gets much more localized to like your neighborhood block and things like that. But
and even then, it's like, what, I need a cup of sugar or something like that. You know?
So it's
what was that?
I don't know. It's
I don't know. Like, yeah, what do you mean by like it gets a lot more localized in the?
I guess
like in a neighborhood. Like, as we live in a suburban neighborhood right now, and I've hardly talked to my neighbors. It's so independent.
Yeah. I guess that also depends on how long you've been there.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't want to speculate or anything like that. Just my experience was I had less connection with the people in my immediate area. I had to go find connection in a place. So like in the Nashville area, my point of connection was either the school that I was going to, or it was the church that I was involved with. Yeah. And so that became my community. But I would still drive like 20 minutes across town to go have community, which feels a little weird to me.
Yeah. You drive past like a million people to go some community. Yeah, I totally feel that. So anyway, grew up on a farm, liking that experience, kind of want to do the same thing for your kids. Picked up music kind of in early high school. I remember those years with you. Man, that was some fun. Like, I know probably back in the day, it's that classic, you know, Andy Bernard quote of, I wish we knew we were in the good old days when we were in them.
Oh, yeah.
But those were some days that I think in the moment it was just so like, oh, we want to do this and that. Like, nothing was ever good enough. And then you look back on it now, it's like, oh, we had like 2 full youth bands.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
crazy.
Nuts. Yeah.
Tell people about that.
That was
if you want to, I guess. But.
That was truly formative.
Yeah.
I think that's where was a big catalyst for what I've done, like for my career, going into music and going into education, and then later on, like publishing and just other things, you know, and doing ministry right now. You learn. It's a time for just working the muscle and putting reps in, that sort of thing. I don't really recall the pressures of management that I would maybe feel right now, of like, you know, managing personalities and that sort of thing. In for youth band on Wednesday nights, it was just, all right, here are the songs, and here we go, and all right, we'll do it again. It was very much just like, do what's in front of you kind of thing. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the leadership at the church at that time that embraced and allowed and gave room
was that
for
mostly
that.
Brandon at that time?
So Brandon
I feel
had
like it
actually
changed
moved
a little bit.
So Brandon had moved on to Springfield.
Who was right after him?
It would have been Pastor Jamie. He
Okay.
took over the youth. So when I was in high school, maybe my freshman year or sophomore year or something.
Yep.
But yeah, so the leadership at the church really made room for us students to just go in and learn as we went. And it was chock full of, there's probably chock full of cringe and all of
some
that.
songs we shouldn't have done.
Probably.
Because that was in the big, like, early boom of, like, Christian metal, too, right?
Something like that.
We probably played a Skillet song.
I don't recall if we did,
No,
but we
I
had
don't
like, I don't know, there was a group of us that decided to have a band for a hot minute, and we would do, we would do all kinds of stuff, but
Which band was that?
I think he knows the name.
I feel like you're intentionally not going into detail on some things with me.
We called it Within These Walls. Which sounds like,
Within These
you
Balls.
know, like post-metalcore. But we did like John Mayer style, like Waiting on the World to Change. Like, you know.
Who was in this band though? This wasn't like the Ben Gladden early days.
No,
this is the one I wasn't in, right?
Right.
Yeah. Dude, when I reflect on stuff like that, I was so hurt that I wasn't in that band. But as I reflect on me as a high schooler, I was such a big old baby and not somebody. I would not have invited me into a band at that time either. But, you know, it was the catalyst for me. But like, you know what? I'm going to be an even better drummer than Alex Knote.
Oh, jeez. Sorry, Alex.
Dude, I saw Alex at a Chick-fil-A the other day.
Oh.
He's pastoring now, which is cool.
Yeah.
And he would say I'm a better drummer, and I would say he's a better drummer. So we're cool. We're chill.
All right.
He literally introduced me to this guy. He's at Chick-fil-A. He's like, dude, this guy's the best drummer you've ever seen. I'm like, and like it like triggered me. I was like, bro, you were just that is some backhanded high school compliment right there. Dude, one of the best drummers. I drummed in a band instead of him. But you know, yeah.
Jeez.
Okay, so it was you, Alex Knote. Was Trey in that?
Trey was in the band.
Andrew.
He came up with the name. Andrew. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if anybody was left to come up with a name for a band, it'd be him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Andrew.
then there was Andrew, and then there was Chewy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing bass.
Yep. So, yeah, we did a couple of dates down at the lake, or we played at the Knights Hall in Glasgow, and that was kind of it.
Dude,
So,
you guys were big time in my eyes. What's it like? It's like that movie where you get left out.
like the
Home
Sandlot.
Alone. No, I felt like Home Alone. Yeah, Sandlot. I felt like the kid in the outfield, the main character. You know, you always watch videos and you're like, yeah, I'm the main character. But yeah, no, I remember feeling mega left out. But then as I reflect, I'm like, dude, you were such a little baby. So you were raised in a Christian home?
Oh yeah. Yep.
When did like faith become like your own, I guess?
I do remember. I point to like my realization point of like fundamentally knowing like Jesus is my savior and knowing the full scope of my sin when I was about 9 years old.
9?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It was at it's a church event. It was not at Faith Family. I did not grow up in the first decade of my life going to Faith Family.
Yeah. You were at Centerpoint, right?
No, I was at Crossroads Christian Center,
Okay.
which closed its doors in like 2001, somewhere around
Was
there.
that Columbia?
It was in Columbia. And so
Do you
that's
have
what led us.
Centerpoint roots?
A lot of the folks that went to Crossroads made their way to
Got
Centerpoint
it.
because it was just down the street.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So-
Didn't mean to interrupt.
So we were at Crossroads, and there was like a revival event, and I point to that moment. It wasn't probably until my late middle school years that the idea of faith as a center point of your lifestyle and your outlook and your thinking started to own that. Faith was really a fundamental part of how we did life as a family. But on a personal level of devoting myself to reading scripture and to be involved in some kind of ministry, service, that sort of thing, really didn't take root until I was about 14, 15. So,
Yep. What was your journey after that, kind of with the Lord and some of those things?
Oh, there's a lot. I pretty typical like youth group sort of thing, where you go through and we started the youth music ministry or the youth band, and that was the big focus of what I did in ministry. Was I play in the band, I play in the worship team, whatever. During college, I did an internship at Faith Family that was all creative ministries, that sort of thing. And then we did a personal systematic theology class my junior year of college. And
Through Central?
No, it was actually something that Pastor Jamie did.
Okay, I was going to say, that didn't sound like
It was. Do you remember
Central thing.
Squad 222? Were you a part of that?
Yeah. I was there for a couple weeks, I think.
Yeah, so that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
like 6:30 a.m. on
Mhm.
Tuesdays.
Mhm.
So that's where I got exposed to a more academic level of theology that was accessible. And I'm really glad for that, because it's what I turned to when I kind of started feeling a bit of an apathy in my faith in the last couple years of school, and having some questions that weren't readily answered with what I knew. And so I started looking into these other areas of theology that we had done in this like small group. And it's what led me to Reformed theology. And so when I moved to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, I got involved with a Presbyterian church. It was part of the PCA, so Presbyterian Church in America, which is a conservative branch of Presbyterianism. And that's where I learned more about covenant theology and things like that. So that's what I would hold to these days is...
Could you explain some of those
Yeah.
to us?
So Reformed theology is coming from the predestination, election camp, that sort of thing.
It's referring to the Martin Luther Reformation, right?
So kind of. So it began with the Reformation with Martin Luther. That's where a lot of these Protestant movements came from, but you would point more towards guys like John Calvin. And then later on with the Scottish reformers, that's what led to the Presbyterianism, which, it's basically just a difference in names. If you go to a Dutch Reformed church here in America, or if you go to a Presbyterian church, you're not really going to notice many differences, but they will hold to different confessions, but both of those confessions pretty much say the same thing. So,
like what? Do you have like an example?
So like looking at the Westminster Confession of Faith versus the Belgic Confession of Faith. I mean, they address many of the same topics, but the language or the arrival to their stances might differ. I mean, it's just semantics at that point.
Gotcha.
And really, they were two camps of people that were geographically
I
moved away.
with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Astrologically, yeah.
The
I went here, okay.
so the like the Scottish reformers and the more Central and Western European reformers, I mean, they worked together. They were in tandem together, but just the way the labels came out were just different. So Reformed theology really values a corporate confession as it's their stance on faith as it concerns the Bible. So the Bible is their supreme authority, but they have a written document, and it's an historical document that's been affirmed and maybe amended throughout the years to reflect their beliefs. They really value the creeds. Things like the Apostle.
Reformed or Presbyterian? I thought Reformed was just an idea, not like a denomination.
Well, it's both.
Okay,
both. So, if I were to say I'm broadly Reformed, it would mean that I hold to I really value a confessional type of theology, so pointing towards like a written down corporate confession.
Yep.
Generally, I'm going to hold to all the tenets of what a predestinationist would believe, and that God has elected those for salvation, and it's been predetermined and it's been set. When you get into labels like, am I Reformed in the denominational sense, you're probably talking to like the Reformed Church in North America, or you're talking to other denominations that have the word Reformed
in it.
Okay. And then Presbyterianism.
Because Presbyterianism is Reformed.
It is Reformed, yeah.
But it's not part of a Reformed denomination.
They would just call themselves a Reformed denomination in the broad sense.
They are Presbyterian.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that's the belief I hold to.
What attracted you to all that? I mean, like what?
I was really.
I'm assuming that's not how you were raised.
That's not how I was raised. I was struggling with the idea that one could reject the call of God.
Where did that come from? Like, do you remember when or where you were when that kind of thought process started? Was it a sermon? Was it a reading? Or
no? It's probably just personal faith struggles.
Yeah.
Patterns of living that were not congruent with biblical ways of living, and like
personally.
Okay. So like, am I living in a way like, am I rejecting God? I don't know. Like, can I reject God after knowing Him? I don't know if I can do that. And I was always brought to the picture of Paul on the road to Damascus. Could he have rejected Jesus Christ and say, no, you're not who you would say you are, when Christ revealed Himself to him on that road? I don't think that's the case. And like, Paul's life was ultimately transformed. I mean, he knew what the absolute truth was in that moment, because the Lord personally revealed Himself to Paul. And so that just led me down to the Reformed system or way of looking at those harder questions. And that's what I find myself to be more in line with. Now, I'm not a member of the PCA anymore, just because of how life has moved me along. Like I physically moved away from that location to be part of a PCA church. And right now I'm a member of Faith Family Church, which is not Reformed, and I'm okay, because we can get caught up in the major differences, or maybe the offense that is taken by hearing like someone believes that God has chosen someone for salvation and has passed over someone else. But if you're reformed or you're not reformed, we agree on the aspect that like the Lord draws his people unto himself. Yeah. I mean, he has provided a way for salvation. That is through his son, Jesus Christ. And he is the only way.
Yeah.
And so I focus, I've really learned to focus more on that in my faith journey right now, because a lot of times when someone becomes newly reformed or you're just involved in those kind of academic faith circles, it just becomes just a circle of debate.
Yeah.
And
I really get into like cigars and beer and beards.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah. Really, for me, it was, I would be at a coffee shop in Murfreesboro, and I'd have these theology students that just wanted to debate and debate and debate, and I was just tired of doing it. So I've not fully shut the door. I'll state what I believe, and I'll defend it to the best that I can, but I'm not trying to convince you, and I'll just lay it out how it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So
why do you think would you say that's something that's important for people to figure out, and why?
Like to figure out
their belief
faith
around that.
Yeah.
You know, predestination or the lack thereof.
Yeah. I think by them exploring that, they get to a deeper level of probably biblical literacy, whatever way you come out on it.
No, I got a lot of people I love that are not that way, and a lot of people I love that are. So and respect.
Yeah,
and would ask for godly advice.
Yeah, and that's, I want to emphasize that for myself too. Like some of my mentors and family and all of that would not be reformed, but I still value their input.
Yeah.
We don't see eye to eye on some of those issues, and for some, if I were in different areas, they would be deal breakers.
Yeah.
But we've got this really great balance, or this really great understanding of like, okay, here's what we agree on in these essentials of the faith.
Yeah.
And here's where I readily submit to like the elders of Faith Family Church. The elders of Faith Family Church have determined that they believe this is what they believe about this particular topic. And I submit to that, But I do, going back to your question about, is it important to form an opinion about these things? I think what it leads you to is a deeper sense of biblical literacy. Like you know the why behind the what, right? And it brings you to all kinds of levels of hermeneutics and textual criticism and church history and all of that. So it's really valuable. It can be intimidating because it's a lot to take on. And a lot of times it can be confusing, and you just kind of have to do it one piece at a time.
Yeah.
So
and I think you should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, your benefits, even if you don't arrive at a conclusion, is at a minimum familiarity with your Bible and familiarity with theological ideas, and hopefully gives you some constructive thinking, was some of your root of exploring like reform stuff and predestination because you might have struggled with like assurance of salvation or anything like that? Did you ever kind of walk with some of that?
Yeah. Was how I was living at the time negating my professed faith and assurance in salvation.
Yeah. Are you like a 5-point Calvinist? Like,
I would say yes. I think that's, I was talking to someone earlier about this today. Like the TULIP acronym is started off as the Arminian acronym, and the TULIP was the response to that. But even then, TULIP in its current thing is not accurate on what the doctrine actually teaches. So therefore it's not as helpful.
Interesting. TULIP is total depravity. U is
unconditional election.
L is
limited atonement.
I,
irresistible grace. And then preservation or the perseverance of the saints.
Okay.
So if you go listen to a guy like R.C. Sproul, he would replace those letters and they would not be a nice little flower name. And so, yeah. But like
is it a bad word that he replaces them?
Well, no, it's like, so for limited atonement, I think you would use the word particular redemption. And if I'm wrong and it matches up with another letter, just go ahead and let me know. Up. Yeah, it's okay. I'm fine. So there are aspects in that acronym that, because we've used English language to illustrate those points, and now it says a nice little tulip word, it's not exactly helpful. Another guy that is really helpful on this topic is Michael Horton, with the White Horse Inn podcast, or if you check out Sola Media, or Core Christianity. Those are all kind of part of his thing that he does. He is a really, really great book. And, well, he's got great material on that. And then there are 2 books that you should check out. He wrote, it's 2 books. He wrote one, and then I believe it was Roger Olson wrote the other one. One is called For Calvinism by Michael Horton, and the other one is called
persuasive document.
Well, then the other one is called Against Calvinism.
Interesting.
By Roger Olson, and I think it's Roger Olson. Again, clean me up if I'm wrong.
Yep.
So, so I think that would be a really good place to start, because it takes those 2 doctrinal ideas and really does a very respectful, healthy debate on that. Yeah. So,
I mean, I think it's an important thing to work out, just because I think it impacts the way you view God, right? Like the omnipotence of God.
The sovereignty of God.
Right, the sovereignty of God. You know, he's powerful enough to do all of these crazy things, but you can resist him. That's a hard concept to play in my mind, that my will can outwill God, you know, in certain aspects. I've always struggled with that. While at the same time, you know, I just like to say, I like to have my cake and eat it too, right? And the way I've kind of reconciled it is we use a word like predestination with a time prefix, and God is outside of time, you know? Like I think people's gripe is that like somebody could believe in God, but God didn't choose them. Like that's not going to happen. I don't think. Like I don't think somebody who genuinely confesses faith in the Lord or what does Wes Huff say? He said hell is locked from the inside, I think. Yeah, like you can believe in God. God's not going to be like, let me check my list first.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, because there's still kind of that, how do we reconcile our active reality with the outside of time nature of God? Right.
Yeah. And I think going to your idea of like, if someone confesses belief in God, if you go read Calvin's Doctrine of Election, if they genuinely are confessing that, then there's no question about assurance.
Right.
So
and the concept would be that God allowed them, or allowed their heart to see that, right? In the same way that he can harden a heart to prevent, he is the initiating work in that. Yeah. I think that's where people get torn up a little bit. It's who's in the initiating role, which that kind of goes back to total depravity, which as a human being, I totally like. So that's the easiest point of Calvinism to buy into, is total depravity.
Yep.
That, it's always funny, like your people who like they'd be like, I hate Calvinism, but they're probably secretly like 3-point Calvinists and don't realize it, you know? Like persistency of the saints and things like that. They're like,
right,
60% of the way there already, but
60% of the time, all the time.
But no, I mean, I think that's like, I don't know, Cody, thinking about you, is this stuff that is all like going through your brain occasionally? Because Cody's kind of would you call yourself a baby Christian a couple years in, right?
I still feel like an infant, but I feel like everyone who's Christian should feel like an infant.
Yeah, I mean, I think mindset wise, I think feeling like you haven't arrived is a good thing. But like when you hear kind of conversations around this stuff, where does your brain go?
I mean, I was literally just before this started telling him like I love theology, and I like when you talk about theology. It's also really, really confusing. As somebody who's like only pushing 3 years into my faith, it's really, really hard to discern between, because some of it, in my opinion, is like very fundamental. Like, for example, a Catholic or an Orthodox is saying something very different than what Faith Family down this church is saying about salvation. And that's really, really hard for me.
Yeah.
Or even just, I mean, I don't know too much about their theology, but First Baptist here in town, like that stuff, I love theology, but it's very, very confusing and it's hard to discern through. So me and you, I think, have even talked about like I remember saying once, I don't know if you remember this conversation, I didn't understand why the crucifix is offensive to somebody, but the cross isn't. And then we talked about that theology. Now that's not in my opinion, a salvific thing, but but yeah, I don't know. I love this stuff, but yeah, it's really hard to, because everything you're saying, somebody might have a really good, not only are they saying something else, they have a good argument for it too equally. Yeah. I really like Wes Huff stuff.
Yeah, I think the fear for Wes a lot of young Christians is like they feel like the barrier of entry around these conversations is so high. But I don't feel like it is. I feel like there's so much accessible information. I just remember my catalyst for actually like not breaking free, because that makes it sound like captive, but like I have always said my upbringing in all non-denominational churches was great and bad in the sense that like I have no theology. So and again, that's a wrong term. I'll clean that up in a second. But I would always say I don't have any like traditional denomination theology, which I thought was a good thing, like blank slate. Well, I also thought it was a bad thing because I had no understanding of like baseline Orthodox Christianity. But I would always say that. And then I listened to a Matt Chandler sermon where he basically, like, he just said it to me. He's like, nobody has no theology. It's just bad theology. Yep. You either have, you don't just get a non-position on theology. It's your belief about God exists, and no belief is a belief, So everybody has theology. Yeah. So I remember that was kind of the catalyst for me of just like getting to explore that. And then my whole life has been shaped by just being raised by YouTube. So that's what I spent a ton of time just watching sermons for hours and hours trying to understand. And then I just found myself gravitating towards people more in that Reformed camp. And I don't know if I should reflect on that more, but I don't know if that's more rooted in their style. Because I do think the difference between Reformed pastors and non-Reformed pastors, there is a different style. And it feels like, at least, and again, now I'm going to talk about something that I've watched the most of. The most I've watched of Reformed pastors seem to take their preaching and their sacredness to the text is very important. It's very serious preaching. Yeah. It's John Piper. It's people like that are just very serious. And I appreciate that in a world where I don't really want a stand-up comedy skit with the things that you think included with some Bible verses thrown in there. So some of that's probably stylistically of how we were raised, because I feel like we were raised in kind of I think we've seen the peak of the mega church, and now just kind of the swirling popcorn machine of the mega church now,
I think it's good to point out that, at least for me, having Scripture as the center focus of how it's our lens, and it's also our source. I feel like I got a lot of that at Faith Family.
Yeah.
But there are some other places, whether that's local or just going and visiting a church somewhere, or just seeing it online, where Scripture is not the central focus of how we examine how God has called us to live. Mm-hmm. And I really agree with your statement on like the delivery of certain like popular Reformed pastors who are charismatic in their own sense, not charismatic in like the charismatic movement. We can talk a lot about that, but they have a certain gravitas. They have a certain sort of charisma to them. It's always interesting and fun and engaging to listen to a guy like John Piper because he's so passionate, right?
Yes. Yep.
If I go listen to a guy like John MacArthur, I know I'm getting the truth, man.
Right.
If I listen,
did he pass recently?
He did. He passed away this year. Yeah. And R.C. Sproul, he preaches with a blackboard, that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these guys they have a certain kind of delivery that leads to a very large draw.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not based on shtick, and it's not based on superficiality.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's teaching with maybe that's the word too, teaching or preaching with a blackboard. I think that's where some of my gripe would be too, is, when I've listened to sermons or visited some churches that I was just like, I don't think that sermon would have academically passed a college speaking class,
it wouldn't have.
And that's where I start to get I think as a Christian, where it just starts to kind of break my heart, where I'm just like, to me, that's a reflection of a large amount of Christianity of like, we care way more about how it sounds and feels than the content. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think you probably listen, you might be a psycho, but I don't think you listened to MacArthur and worked out, right? He wasn't your pump up sermon.
No.
But we got to listen to people like that, right? Like if we want, like we wanted that information, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think sadly, like when I hear criticisms about pastors, it's just like, yeah, just the way he says it is so much different and better. And I'm like, what do they say?
Yeah. I've heard it in the phrase like, we just don't feel like we're getting fed.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, there's some truth to that. I mean, if I go to a place where the gospel is not preached, yeah, I'm not getting fed.
Yep.
You know? But if you ever get to a point where you feel like you've just heard it all and you just need to go hear something different, but the gospel is being faithfully preached, and that's a you problem.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's like, seems like you've arrived kind of thing. It's a scary spot to be in.
Or it's not so much that, it's like you're looking for the next sort of emotional movement. You want to be moved. You want to have that feeling that you first maybe had at your salvation experience. And then maybe later on in life when you had that like, oh, Jesus Christ is Savior, but he's also Lord.
Yeah.
You know, like you have those significant emotional events and you're chasing after that.
Yeah.
Instead of resting in the promise of God in like what you will receive from his word when it is faithfully preached.
Yeah. Or read. Yeah. I think a lot of times when I've been in those moments where I'm like, this doesn't feel right, it's like you haven't like talked to the Lord. Like prayed and read your Bible in a while kind of thing, you know? But yeah, I think it's that could be a product of, you know, I think John in my office talks a lot about like the mega churches today are just the youth groups of the 80s and 90s, you know, pizza and entertainment, you know, doing anything to bring those people in, which again, like I'm sure a lot of great things have come from those things. So I never want to just completely slap all those things. But this podcast is brought to you by, you guessed it, me, Landon Ball, State Farm agent. Do you feel like insurance doesn't make any sense? You are not alone. My team and I are trying to figure that out like every day. If you want to understand your insurance policy better, specifically if you have like a life or car or home insurance policy that some brother-in-law or uncle twice removed sold you years ago, reach out to my team here in Fayette at 660-248-2424 or go to our website at FayetteInsuranceTeam.com. Please don't call me with anything non-insurance related. Don't call our office if it's not about insurance. Please don't call or contact our office if it's about ice cream shop, anything that's not insurance related. Thanks. Just like chasing the next, you know, spiritual moments. Yeah. How have you dealt with some of that? Like when you converted for the first time, was it a fairly emotional like engagement for you? Or because one of the this is what I was going to say. There's a lot of people coming to Christ on just the academic research of the person of Jesus these days. Like that is a movement right now where people are.
That's how I genuinely feel like
there's just Christ. You have to do something with the historical figure of Jesus.
Like like a Lee Strobel type of thing.
That kind of
Case
thing.
for Christ kind of stuff.
That's so hard because the evidence is like, in my opinion, super hard to like. I mean, I guess you're left with, did he rise from the dead? I choose to believe he did. But this is where like the gospel is difficult for me and stuff. Because like I know like, or in my heart, and I just feel like the evidence supports Christ existed. He was who he said he was. But then there's the following Christ bit. And that's the thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's a lot of people that from the historical piece of it, to me, it's kind of like the abortion argument. You basically have to try to say that thing's not a human. That's your only argument to say, and that's not scientifically there. So you just have to create your own truth there. You know, when you look at the historical aspects of Jesus, you basically just have to say he was made up. That's your only, based on factual, like investigative resources, you would have to dismiss how else we prove things from years ago.
Yeah.
You'd have to dismiss all that academia and say that he just didn't exist and that it was made up. That's a stronger position than saying Jesus was just a good teacher.
Yeah.
It's a stronger position to just say it was all made up and it was fake. Because logically, you don't have an argument to say that he was just a good teacher because he doesn't allow himself to be parked in that spot. But I think what he's pointing to, and I agree with, there's a lot of people who historically and academically can get to, okay, Jesus died and rose again, but what is all this mess after now? Is that kind of your experience dealing with Christians and being a Christian leader? Is seeing some of that, or
I've not really encountered that. Most of my interactions, like on a deeper level and in doing life with people, we pretty much there's a large agreement on a large variety of issues. Really, maybe contention or struggles would be coming down to like theological points, like secondary issues and things like that. So just like what we talked about earlier with things like predestination or free will and other things like that. I think where I'm at right now is like how we are corporately worshiping, and how are we doing that in spirit and in truth, in a way that is not chasing after experience for experience's sake, but also learning to kind of let me preface this in some like Reformed congregations or anything that has like a higher liturgy, if you want to say so, like high church versus low church. There's a certain expressiveness that comes with what has historically been called low church, and that is not a dig. It is not meant to be like lowbrow, none of that. Like there's a lot of value and a lot of good things. High church just refers to having a very high priority on like, we're going to read this, we're going to say this at this time, this is going to happen here.
Confessional.
And
liturgistic,
that sort of thing. Trying to find the balance between those two worlds, especially at a church like Faith Family that has a really diverse it has a group of people who have very diverse backgrounds, where they're coming from neo-charismatic movements or Pentecostal movements. You have former Catholics, you have former Lutherans, you have Reformed guys like me. You have
a bit
folks,
of Methodism,
and then Methodism, right? So, like, how can we make room for the expressive that doesn't dip too deep into just indulgence in a way, but not stifle the moving of where we're being led.
Yeah.
Some would call it the leading of the Holy Spirit. I have a slightly different view on that, where we're supposed to be living in the Spirit all the time. And our corporate gatherings are where we give attention to God. And His Spirit does a work in illuminating His truth through His Word, and how we read His Word, how we preach His Word, how we sing His Word, how we pray His Word, how we minister through His Word. And so I don't necessarily agree with like the Spirit is really moving us to sing the second chorus one more time. I would say I'm perceiving the response of the people in front of me as I'm leading them through these songs and saying, oh, it would be so good for us to sing this second chorus. And that's not in and of me of myself.
Yeah.
That's not based on my own reasoning or intellect. It's incorporating this discernment, or maybe it's incorporating this just like observation that
sensitivity.
Sensitivity would be a really great word. And so we're going to sing that chorus again. Yep. And maybe we'll go back to this bridge and we'll do that.
Yep.
I don't necessarily ascribe that to this little voice saying, do this, I'm enjoying this moment in this communion with God corporately and on an individual level, where then I lead the rest of the people in saying it again. Or I can see maybe it's not sticking. So we're going to sing this again so you understand it.
And we're not going to do this fourth song either. Have you had moments like that where you're like, it is dead in here?
I've not had moments like that. Maybe for the sake of time, because service went like an hour and a half instead of an hour.
There's been some times as a worship leader where I'm like, this didn't sound good in rehearsal, and time isn't going well, and it doesn't feel great in this room. We're not going to try to do that song for the sake of doing that song.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had some of those.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sometimes that's at camp too. Like when I did a kids camp, I'm like, none of y'all are tracking this. But yeah, like something that popped in my head too is like, discerning, like, talking about like all those backgrounds and like what people now live out from a worship perspective, not just like music worship, but just worship in general, is kind of this like Holy Spirit and what actually is the Holy Spirit, right?
Right.
And what popped in my brain is like trying to discern between what's a sugar high and what's actually energy.
Yeah.
Might be not a terrible way to put it.
Not terrible.
Because I feel like, what you're talking about is the chasing of, but that's really just a sugar high because you just have these giant crashes after it.
Right. Yeah.
Like even now, like maybe you can give some wisdom here. I think what I struggle now as like, you and I probably agree on a lot of points of theology. You and I also probably disagree on a lot of them, and like we'll totally go eat ice cream and hang out after it too. Like we're cool. I have never been somebody on what I call open hand theology, open, not closed hand, but open hand issues. Am I going to be like, oh, dude, we're not cool? Like I gel with most people. Where I struggle in the play out from now is like, not necessarily, it feels like there's this giant pendulum between on fire, sugar high 24/7 and just dead, solemn, doldrum. Obedience isn't the right word. But if you know what I'm saying on that other side.
I think I understand.
And I think where I struggle is I remember being at the mountaintops. I hate that term, but at the mountaintops of some of those moments where you're in worship or it was something in yourself, or, I have very specific stories where I just remember like, dude, just the Lord just wrecking me with some truth in a moment. Most recently was an airport like 2 years ago.
Really?
Where I'll tell this story. I just remember, because maybe it'll mean something to somebody, but I just remember I was dropping off Annie and my daughter to go to the airport to go hang out with my in-laws for a week. Okay. Not a big deal. Have I told you this story?
I feel like I might have heard it.
Maybe.
But
Anyway, so I don't think I've shared it here, but anyway, I drop him off at the airport and your boy is wrecked. Like just sobbing. And I like, we didn't get a divorce. Like she wasn't going off to a hospital. Everybody's cool. They're going to see my in-laws who are awesome. Like they're going on a plane, which is safer. Like I'm like, everything's fine, but I'm just like wrecked and I miss them. And I just remember when I have moments like that, I remember just almost every time I have emotional moments like that, especially like, and it's been the good gift of kids. I'm just like, how could like my dad do what he did to our family, right? And I remember, usually you have things like that, and I've explained it away, which is like, just crazy, or he's got this condition. And for them, it wasn't audible, but I just felt in that moment like the Lord just go, yeah, that's what sin does. Like sin is not satisfied until it destroys everything. Like and for the first moment, I think you and I've talked about this. I didn't necessarily have like, I don't know if compassion's the right word, but I was like, oh, this dude had all of this.
Yeah.
And I don't think he actively chose to blow it all up. Like I think sin ravaged it. The active choice thing, whatever you want to say in there, but like that wasn't like him. He didn't have a T chart. Like I don't think my dad had a cheat chart that said, here's the pros and cons of blowing up my family. Sin said, I'm going to take all of this until I'm satisfied, until we get serious about killing still. But anyway, I have moments like that. And I think I've matured long enough to know that that's not going to be every single moment. But where I am struggling is when I've served in ministry, I've seen moments where people go from not knowing Christ to knowing Christ I remember when Cody accepted Christ for the first time, I was just like, what the freak is going on right now? And where I struggle is like,
sermon is why.
well, and I don't mean to dog. I'm not dogging. It was Luke Noble who preached that night. But like it was not in any, usually you remember those nights where like the pastor just gives this epic illustration, somewhat emotionally manipulative. Wasn't that. Luke was just like, here's Genesis 1. And I could tell like, Luke, if you're listening to this, I jokingly say, I was like, one of the like least like moving sermons I've ever heard. Good truth. I said, one of the least moving sermons ever. And Cody, I'm going to be a Christian now. Praise God.
What he said basically he was talking about how people are inherently evil. And that really ticked me off. I'm like, no, they're not. Like because like in my heart, I feel like I have good intentions. And I feel like most people have good intentions, but and it took some maturing to realize good intentions doesn't make you a good person. But I argued with him in front of everyone at NAVS, and I'm just like, dude, you're stupid. Like, and it was a lot of that, me coming back just to be like, you're wrong. But
yeah, and I think that's another cool point about your conversion too, is like you decided to believe in Jesus. But it wasn't like the very next day you have removed all of your tattoos and prayed for 6 hours a day. No, it was like, I'm actually going to work this out now. So that's been a lot. But anyway, I've been like taking 5 minutes to ask this question for wisdom from you. But where I'm struggling is I know that Christian faith can't be the mountaintop experiences all the time.
Right.
I'm really struggling accepting the other polar of that's what it feels. There feels like there's no middle between. It's not the mountaintops anymore. So it's instead, it's this very doldrum, like almost feels dead, but you're committing your brain to the beliefs that you know are true, but my life is not full of joy, or my life is not full of the things that like you want them to be full of. Does that make any sense?
I think so. So you're looking at the difference in like exuberance, and really like I've had this God experience here on one end, where there's been the Holy Spirit has given light to an aspect of truth that has been moving for me or life-changing for me. And then on the other end, maybe there's no movement except for my own, and I show up. And almost by rote, we would use the term going through the motions, something like that.
Except our Christian roots. That's an old Matthew West song, right?
Yeah.
Or Brandon Heath, maybe.
I think it was Matthew West, yeah. Oh.
Anyway, sorry.
I think I think there's something profound in pursuing the ordinary. And there's nothing wrong in routine. There's nothing wrong in a repeated process. It is the application of that. So, usually the exuberant sort of thing or the big experiences involve some kind of like mobilization with the community. Like you're engaging with people and like we're all together and it's really great and whatnot. And then the going through the motions, maybe community is still there, but there's no like active application, or there's no there's no
doesn't feel like there's any urgency. Like the other side of this is where where it feels like and people know where I have and have not gone to church my whole life. So this will apply to many different places I've been. Like we're all just going to show up and do our duty, and then the Lord will probably figure it out. Instead of like an urgency to like look for what's God going to do now.
Right. And I think that's where, on a personal level, you just really have to own that.
What do you mean?
Like, instead of waiting, our church just is really dead and it really doesn't do this. Well, okay, what are you doing?
Sure, but like, what if you are doing that? But like, back to that part about it's a group of people doing that. Like that's where I'm struggling with. Like I know I can't chase the mountaintops things, but I'm trying to own that piece of it. But it feels like the collective is either at the mountaintop or we just do our duty.
Okay.
I guess as a leader, you probably deal with this.
Yeah. And that's something that I think there's always going to be a tension there. So then just learning to rest in your own place in the journey at your own pace and doing what is faithful, and really like when those moments come where we're all like, embracing those, but giving grace in some of the other areas where someone is not moving as passionately as you think they should, or maybe as they once had been. And there's a lot of different contexts where, you have zeal and apathy. Maybe that's how we should frame this. Maybe. Zeal and apathy. Yeah. Where I can look, there's been even just recent things in how I've had to have hard conversations where apathy for craft, apathy for preparation, apathy for excellence, as an offering unto the Lord, has led to like, no, we can't. This is not going to be acceptable. Yeah. I've not had.
It's like you dug these broken cisterns and asked me to fill them with water, kind of thing. That Jeremiah somewhere in there, but I've told this. We've talked about this before, but like, I think you were probably like 18 and I was 15. But like one of the most important things you ever did to me and for me was kick me out of leading worship one night because I wasn't prepared at all.
You're gonna bring it up?
Oh my gosh, no! But it was. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, how do you, as a leader, that's just a hard line to hold. I'm glad you held that line because it changed my life forever from a leadership perspective. But like, I guess I'm struggling on how do I give that to other people? Well, also remember we were 18 and 15 and you were going to lead worship that night instead of me, right? Like if somebody's lined up to lead worship and you kick them off, but you have no backup plan, then you have no worship kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm struggling a little bit, is like, I want people to hold like a standard of how they prepare and what they do. And again, maybe this is back to like that preaching styles. I want a seriousness for what we are doing, because otherwise this is a really terrible hobby. I think Christianity and church is a awful hobby if you're not like serious about it. But also giving grace that there's seasons of just hard stuff. But does that make sense? Kind of what I'm keep going. Sorry.
That's just how I've handled it.
Yeah.
I'm actively working on this to give encouragement, to motivate people, and really pour life into them. Because when you pour life into people, it tends to pour out of them in other ways too, right? And so it might yield results that are more in line with what we idealize, maybe, or ideate. So that's what I'm trying to do in this season right now of leading the creative ministries, really backing up our speakers as I send out a set list and saying, our speaker is this person this week. So like this week, Pastor Brandon is going to be speaking on Jesus as the true and better Isaac. It's one of my favorite series that we've done in a long time. We're going to be singing this song from the Gettys, Matt Boswell, called Christ the True and Better. And it specifically mentions Jesus Christ as the true and better Isaac, humble son of sacrifice. Like, I love these connections. I love this coming back to like how the gospel threads all the way through. And it really appeals to like the covenantal side of theology that I adhere to. I love it. And so not just saying, here's the set list this week, I'll see you at 8:00. It's, hey, here's our set list. Here's our focus. Pastor Brandon's going to be speaking on this. Go look at this passage of scripture and view it within this context. So giving them kind of a mini teaching meant to encourage them so we're all in alignment together. And then we really savor those moments on Sunday, I think, a little bit more strongly. So I think when I came into my role at Faith Family from my past experience in the industry, as it were, I was coming from like professional musician. You either like high standards, and everybody has a good time because they've all kind of, we collectively meet those standards and whatnot. When you step into a space that has volunteers, that's in an area that is not as densely populated like Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, you probably didn't have capos at your meetings in Nashville.
I don't diss on capos. I don't diss on capos.
I am a capo
only if you
user.
play jazz and you try to use a capo. That's the only time I'll diss. But no,
But yeah, that's my point. Is like you show up and everybody owns their guitar. Nobody's borrowing a guitar in Nashville.
Well,
but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. But like so a lot of my communication was very process oriented, like bing, bang, boom. All right, get it right. All right, here we do. And there's just learning to step back into the space where you motivate people to excel and to improve, but you communicate it in a different way. I've had to learn that, or maybe relearn that.
Yeah. Did you ever like do band directing?
Not at the public school level.
But I think you had. It probably brought you back. My guess is that's kind of the feeling I get sometimes when you're working with like world class, you're speaking a different language to volunteer base, and you're like, oh, this is back to more like band directing. Let's get the very best out of you. Here's what good sounds like.
And it really just comes down to relating well, and framing things in a way that inspire people to move forward into maybe some unknown territory, or look at something that they know they can and should do, but it's intimidating. And so you guide them to that place. That's just something that I've had to learn how to do.
Do you feel like there's less musicians now than in the past? Because like when I think about our upbringing, we had so many musicians at Faith Family, and now it doesn't feel like churches have very many at all. But you feel like that's true, or is it just up and downs?
I think there's some up and downs. I think COVID was a big thing. But like right now, I auditioned a bass player this morning. I'm talking with another student who is going to be filling that role, but on a different instrument. And I'm going to be, hopefully training him in how to pull that off. So taking I don't think there's a dearth of musicians, in the general sense, but there are probably, we're short on people who can step into that space and do what's required.
Do you think we were spoiled then in our upbringing from a musician standpoint?
I do think we were uniquely placed.
Yeah.
It's not every day that you get to have access to, Nashville songwriters and people who
Didn't
have
the Mercy
done,
Me drummer used to be at Faith Family?
Yeah. Robbie Schaefer.
Yep.
So,
And
hey,
then-
Robbie, if you're listening to this,
Yeah, Robbie, if you're randomly
you're our
listening to
hero.
this.
Really.
Robbie,
No,
you're
really,
not my
yeah.
hero. It's Michael Miner, actually.
Michael
That's
Miner.
who I grew up.
Actually, Michael Miner.
That's who I grew up
He's-
watching.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, I couldn't even worship. I was just staring at him. I was just like, how are you even doing that? And he would show up like sometimes either a drummer got sick or something. He'd show up at like 9:59, roll up. No worries. Yep. So I aspired to be like him, which I think for the most part, for most modern worship, I can show up at 9:59 and play most of these songs. But yeah, we were spoiled for sure growing up. I mean, Dave Reitz, Kathy. Did Kathy teach you a lot about worship leading?
I think it was a lot. I never had
Indirectly?
I never had a sit down conversation with any of my mentors, but it was just a process of osmosis.
Sure.
You know?
Yep. Proximity.
I think there was probably 1 or 2 times of use gentler tone.
Who said that?
I think Kathy told me.
Right.
On the heels of like, some very rough rehearsals.
Yeah.
I
feel like we got such a broad talent and not talent, but like a technicality, just a practice. We got such a broad practice of musicians to play with. Like when I describe playing with worship people, Jamie was type A perfectionist, is how I described him. That was my impression. Kathy was very like loose, the Holy Spirit telling her to go multiple different places at once. But learning how to, like, I learned how to follow that, and I learned how to follow Pastor Jamie.
Yeah.
It was just such a broad practice type, like as in like a skill type, not like a practice rehearsal, but just a practice. It was just good. And then, man, for me, some of the best memories are those like Howard County bluegrass showdowns that we'd have in the summer.
Oh yeah.
I wish we still did those. Those were fun.
We had so actually for the Grace and Truth School, we did do bluegrass night.
Yep. But true bluegrass doesn't have a full drum set, right? Not really.
So that's an evolving thing. I remember getting schooled when I said traditional bluegrass to someone who was an old time player. So old time predates bluegrass, and bluegrass is actually, in the grand scope of popular music, is a fairly recent thing.
Really?
Yeah. Kind of Great Depression era. It was that aspect of country music when country music became a commercial music. And the bluegrass was one of the first like commercial versions of country music.
So it's kind of like hipster country.
I don't know if I'd go as far to say that. But
some bluegrass musicians listening to this, like
if you go listen to Alison Krauss and Union Station, or you go listen to some other groups like that, or even in the newgrass movement, they'll have drummers. They're probably playing brushes or something like that. Yeah. But what we did, we called it the Bluegrass and Gospel Night. It was more of a country review where we played some bluegrass music and we played some more Southern gospel with country tinge and all that kind of stuff. But music is...
No drummer.
But with a...
Did you have a drummer?
When you played?
No, your Grace and Truth night, though.
Oh, the Grace and... Oh, that was more of... And I'm going to say it again, traditional bluegrass.
That's what I'm saying. I was like...
It was more of what you might expect from like a bluegrass string group. And so that was Dave Reitz, and I believe it's called Airborne. And that's spelled with an H, like airs, like, we are the airs.
Kind of like unique with a G or a Q.
Unplug,
sorry.
Unplug with the Q. No, Airborne. And so they're based out of Mexico.
Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri. Yeah.
Remember Thomas asked me to go on a road trip to Mexico one time in college, and he wouldn't tell me which one. That's two huge different things.
Yeah. So they played. We had a really great night. A lot of really good support race for the school. Just to kind of give background, I'm on the board for our new private Christian school here in town. So.
Hey guys, Cody here. I'm the producer of the show, recording this really quick outro so we don't end on some random note. We're going to pause the conversation right here. This is part 1 of 2 with Derek. Landon will pick up next episode talking more about Derek's work, his ministry, and how all of this ties into what he's doing today. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube if you're not doing those things already. The engagement really helps grow the show. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, if you could just follow on those platforms, we'd really appreciate it. But yeah, guys, we will see you in part 2.